See this vehicle here? If I told you this was a Toyota Mirai, would you believe me? Because the one in your head is probably messed your brain up because it was hideously ugly. This new one is a lot better, and Toyota has put a lot of effort into making this a much better car than the vehicle it replaces. So the outside is better, the drive layout has changed, and the interior is nice, but how does it actually drive? It drives really nicely, but just don't expect it to be anything resembling anything close to sporty, despite the change to this rear-wheel drive setup instead of a front-wheel drive setup. It moves along very smoothly. It is nice and quiet inside the cabin. The features are well laid out. Now slide inside the Mirai and you're greeted to a cabin that is almost, I'm being serious here, Lexus-like in its execution. The seats are really nicely upholstered, laid out, and they're very comfortable. The steering wheel feels great, and there's really nice design, especially to the way this vent streams across and over the passenger side. There's a big screen that comes standard on all of them, and this whole piece here, the instrument panel, the way it flows, almost feels like something you would find in a concept car. There's a nice JBL sound system. There could be a bit more rear legroom space, but overall it is a nice spot to be. Think of this in size closely related to like the Lexus GS, even though it rides on a platform similar to the Lexus LS. So right off the bat, this is a much better looking vehicle. Yes, there's still a lot of design on the nose of it, but it's so much better. I cannot stress that enough. It has a very cool fastbacky sports sedan-like shape. The nose is all cleaned up, though I do think the headlight treatment looks like an angry cat wearing eyeliner or like war paint. You know, take that as you will. But the rest of the vehicle does look improved, and this white paint looks nice in the sun. The new Mirai sees a 19 horsepower bump over the outgoing first-gen Mirai, and additionally range is up 30% compared to the outgoing model as well. Instead of 2 cylindrical hydrogen tanks, there's now 3 under the cabin, and the system can hold 5.6 kilograms of hydrogen compressed at 10,000 psi. That's 12% more capacity than the last Mirai. With the switch to this rear-wheel drive platform and the extra hydrogen tank, we now have an actual 50-50 front-to-rear weight distribution. It's not a sports sedan, but it sure is set up like one. Now coming around to the back, I like the taillight treatment, though the actual trunk lid looks a little bit stubby, and then obviously there's no exhaust outlets right here because this dumps out water. So with 182 horsepower and 200 plus pound-feet of torque, those sound like okay numbers for an economy car. This is not an economy car. This is a 4,200 plus pound hydrogen-fueled electric vehicle. And that's the neat thing about hydrogen vehicles. With a battery electric, you are consuming electricity. With the hydrogen vehicle, you are generating electricity. It's a weird yet very interesting distinction. So with new looks, Toyota also changed the price, and more interestingly, they did not raise it. They've made the Mirai better looking, nicer inside, and given it more range, and they've dropped the price by $9,000 over the outgoing version. That is crazy to me. A base XLE Mirai starts just over $50,000. Then you climb into the low to high 60s with, you know, moving up the trim all the way up to the Limited and the fancy looking ones. And these, when you get to the higher spec ones with their really nice looking wheels and all that stuff and improved interior materials, though this isn't bad here on the XLE, it starts to feel very Lexus-like. And I mean, part of that is due to the shift in platform, but also to the attention given to the materials used on the inside. Like I said, this is an XLE, but this leather touch surface across the instrument panel is very nice, and all of them get this nice screen set up. It feels concept car-y in a really good way. Though I do think that this black trim, it has a little bit of sparkle in it when the sun hits it, and I don't need that sparkle. Some people will like it. That's kind of a take it or leave it thing right there. Another interesting feature, since this vehicle consumes hydrogen and the only output is H2O, there's a tank that holds the H2O, and the car will occasionally release that on the freeway or wherever you're driving at times as you're moving. But there's a button to do it manually if you want. I don't know why they let you do that manually, other than if you feel like your car needs to take a leak on the freeway, or maybe if someone's driving too close to the back of this. But there it is. You can press the button to purge the water buildup in this. And that's with, I think, every hydrogen vehicle does that. Now let's take a minute to talk about the other hydrogen vehicles out there. There's the Toyota Mirai, Honda has the Clarity, and then Hyundai has the Nexo. So the Clarity is similar to the Mirai in that it's a sedan. And I think the Clarity was one of the first ones that was around in the hydrogen game. The Nexo is more of a crossover, and I've driven the Nexo as well, and the Nexo is fine. I mean, that's the thing with driving these, feels like driving an electric vehicle, because that's essentially what it is. It's just you're not plugging it in, you just have to fill it up with hydrogen. So you kind of get the best of both worlds in that when it does come time to fill this thing up, you just go to a hydrogen station and it takes about 5 minutes. So it's more familiar to those of you coming from a gasoline vehicle. So the range has improved on this new one compared to the outgoing model. I believe the last Mirai topped out at about 312. With an XLE, this is rated at 402 miles on a tank. The fancier trim, which weighs a little bit more and has bigger wheels and tires, that drops to, I think, in the 350 range. So plenty of range before you have to hit a hydrogen station, but that's good because finding a hydrogen station could be troubling for some of you. If you're outside of California, there's really no reason to buy one of these right now, and that's a bit of a shame because I think the technology is good, just that the infrastructure isn't there yet. I happen to live near 2 or 3 hydrogen stations, so I could drive one of these, but if I had to drive this to Vegas and back, I might be in trouble. Could I drive one of these to San Francisco and back? That, I don't know. I'd really have to look at a map, whereas I know right now, in a standard battery electric vehicle, I know I can do that. I know I could drive to New York and back if I wanted to, because I've driven from New York to LA in an electric vehicle, and I can't do that. There's literally no way to do that right now in a hydrogen vehicle. So these are good cars. This Mirai it looks so much better on the outside, like we said. The interior is very nicely laid out. It feels like, I want to say entry-level Lexus, because it doesn't feel like a top-shelf LS or a loaded GS, but it definitely has Lexus vibes in it, which is like a good bridge between the Toyota and Lexus families. It's just that we're not quite ready for these. The Mirai is a really good answer to a question that, frankly, not a lot of people are asking. But if that tune changes, if the questions start flowing fast and furious and hydrogen becomes more readily available, Toyota has a good thing waiting for you.